will call the Ayer Select Board to order for Tuesday, February 6, 2024. This meeting/hearing of the Ayer Select Board will be held in person at the location provided on this notice. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation via Zoom is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting/hearing will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in a specific item on this agenda should take plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. This meeting will be live on Zoom and Channel 8. Public may access the proceedings by joining Zoom meeting ID number 897-9080-0793 by calling 929-205-6099. For additional information about remote participation, please contact Carly Antonellis, Assistant Town Manager at ATM@air.ma.us or 978-772-8220 extension 100 prior to the meeting. Ask everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Do we have any changes to the agenda this evening?
I have no changes.
I have nothing.
Okay, I don't have any.
I'll make a motion that the board approve the agenda as presented.
Seconded?
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
And chair says aye. We have no announcements this evening, correct? Okay, perfect. So that brings us to public input. Is there anyone here for public input this evening? No? All right, excellent, thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is a joint meeting with the Ayer Finance Committee. We're going to go through the presentation of the Ayer Shirley Regional School District FY25 budget. So first, Kurt, I'll invite you to call the Finance Committee to order.
Hi, this is Kurt Freskowski, Chairman of the Finance Committee. I call this meeting to order of the joint Select Finance Committee meeting on February 6 at 6 p.m.
Excellent. I'd like to invite members from the school district to come join us at the table. Dr. Renda? Mr. Plunkett, how are you this evening?
Good, how you doing?
Good, long time no see. Sorry I missed your visit in November.
Great. Thank you for having us and thank you for having the joint meeting. We really appreciate that.
So I'll turn it over to you. I know you usually do a presentation, correct, to start?
Yes.
Okay,
it's
perfect.
Brought up now. Thank you. You can actually skip ahead a couple of slides if you don't mind. So tonight we will be presenting the fiscal year preliminary budget, the assessments, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. And we'll start with the timeline. Next slide, please. And some enrollment numbers. So where we are currently, February 6th, we are presenting tonight at the Select Board and FinCon meeting. We did present last night to the Select Board in Shirley. Moving forward, hopefully we will have on February 14th the final budget presentation and public hearing at 6:30. I believe that will take place at the library in the middle school. On March 2nd, we were asked to present the budget to the Shirley FinCom at 9 a.m. I believe that is a Saturday. We need to take a vote either March 4th or 5th for the regional school committee needs to vote on the budget March 4th or 5th because it needs to be approved 45 calendar days prior to the Ayer and Shirley Town meetings. The reason that this is a little bit different is the primary is being held in Shirley on March 5th. And
here too.
Here too, okay, thank you. And typically, we don't like to hold school committee meetings when there are elections. So we will be asking the school committee tonight to consider changing that meeting date to Monday, March 4th. April 22nd, we will present, I believe, a small presentation at the Ayer Town meeting, and the same on March 6th in Shirley. So just an update on our enrollment. Our district enrollment for fiscal year 24 is 1687. That is an additional 51 students from the previous year. For this year, our enrollment was, including out-of-district students, was 1,717. That is actually 3 fewer than last year. We had 33 students in out-of-district placements in fiscal year '23, and only 30 in this year. Projected for next year is also 30. Ayer Shirley Regional High School currently has 412 students as of October 1st. That is 16 additional students. Ayer Shirley Middle School has 379 students. That's an additional 12 students. Laura A. White has 356. That is an additional 13. And Page Hilltop is at 540. That is an additional 8 students. So our students who live in the towns and are choosing to choice out, these numbers are trending in the right direction. Currently, there are 96 students who choice to other districts. That is down from the previous year, from 121. That is 25 fewer. There are 64 students who live in Ayer who choice out to another district. That's 5 fewer than the previous year. And there are 32 students who choice out who live in Shirley, and that is 20 fewer from the previous year. We expect this to continue to trend in this direction. Choice in has stayed relatively the same the last few years. We had 96 students choice in this year. That is 1 fewer from last year at 97. We're not surprised by these numbers. 2 years ago, we had closed choice entirely. In the last couple of years, we have been taking limited students in for school choice, mainly because of the mental health, social emotional, and academic needs of our students. We wanted to make sure that we were able to meet those before we were inviting other students to choice in. So these are the charter school numbers. Again, these numbers are trending in the right direction as far as we're concerned. There are 30 students this year who are attending a state charter school. That is 3 fewer from the previous year. And in Shirley, there are 24 students that attend a charter school. That is 7 fewer than last year. The district is down 10 for a total of 54 students who attend a charter school. And for our students who attend Neshoba Tech, 61 students as of October 1st from Ayer attend Neshoba Tech. That is down 9 students from the previous year. And there are 51 students who live in Shirley who attend Neshoba Tech. That is actually an additional 10 students from the previous year. So 1 student additional this fiscal year as compared to last. These numbers stay roughly the same. They range from around 100 to 110, and we're at 112 this year. Next, we're going to give you an update of our English language learners. Again, it's important to note that these numbers are as of October 1st. This is when the state pulls the data to determine budgeting. So currently, the district has, as of October 1st, the district had 71 students, or 4.3% of the population. The high school had 8 students, or 2% of the population. The middle school has 9 students, or 2.5% of their population. Laura White had 18 students, or 5.2% of their population, and Page Hilltop had 36 students, or 6.8. It is important to note that Page Hilltop is up to 52 students currently, and that is a large increase in 1 year. Next, I'm going to talk to you about our special education enrollment. In fiscal year '24, we had 324 students who were in special education. We also had 30 students in out-of-district placements for a total of 354 students total in special education. The district enrollment, again, is 1,687. With the out-of-district placements, that's 1,717. So our special education percentage is 20.5%. The state average is 20.2. We're falling very closely in line with the state average, the state percentage. And the percentage of special education students out of the district, total special ed students, is 8.5. So all of the special ed students in the district, the 354, 8.5% of those students are out of district placements. And that is 1.7% of the total district population. Next, this is the special education out-of-district costs, which are always very high. In fiscal year '24, it was $3,201,530. That was 9% of the total budget. That was actually, part of that is because of a 14% increase in out-of-district placements. Projected for fiscal year '25 will be $3,356,641, and we're projecting a 6.6% increase
Yes, for
in those
out-of-district.
tuitions.
This is one of our first internal planning documents for developing our budget. Last time we met with the Finance Committee was the 23rd, so the governor's budget came out the next day. So we have made some changes. The first one in the top section is the revenue compared to FY25 to FY24. We have changed the Chapter 70 number to 8.6 million. The governor's budget came through was $30 a student. She had proposed $60 a student, but I guess we'll have to hope that that comes through further down the process as it goes on to the House and the Senate. So right now it's currently at $30 a student. We're a minimum aid district, so we get the $30 times our foundation enrollment for Chapter 70 funding. We've also lowered the transportation reimbursement a little bit. The governor's was 15,000 lower than we had previously, so we're okay with that. We'll be conservative. Medicaid, we found that we did not reach our budget for last year, so we're dropping that number. And charter reimbursement, as you saw in the numbers, we're down 10 students overall in our enrollment for charter out, so we're dropping that by 60,000, and that's reflected in the cherry sheets as well, you'll see. The middle sections are our drivers. Again, health insurance, transportation, contract increases, and we have an item this year called ESSER 3 positions. You'll see it's $768,000, and that is for positions that we've hired through the ESSER grants over the last 3 years since post-COVID. And it's for behavioral needs, for social, emotional, and nursing adjustment counselors. We've added lots of support staff for our students because of the learning loss that we realized for our students after COVID.
Early literacy and mental health also.
So if we add the revenue, we're up 78,000 on the revenue, and the increases to our expenditure lines for these selected items is one. We actually subtract the 78 from the 1.4, so we have about a 1.3 increase to the budget for these items. The last two rows are for two of our revolving funds that we do budget salaries for teaching and out-of-district tuitions. We do not. That does not affect the assessment at all because they are revolving accounts. They're not in the assessment calculation. This is the cherry sheets for our funding and our charges to and from the state. The middle row is FY25, the governor's budget, 8.6 million for Chapter 70. Tuition reimbursement at 188. We think that's a little optimistic, so we did lower that to I think to $90,000 on our 150. We went half. I split the difference. We went to 150 from where we were last year, but that seems to be a pretty optimistic number. Transportation is down a little bit, like we saw previously, and choice out is tuition in is pretty stable. So our revenues are up $53,000 in those top rows. And then the bottom part is the charges. The state withholds our charter and choice sending tuition from our Chapter 70 payments. So every month they are reduced by 1/12 of these amounts. And lowers our Chapter 70 amount that we get, but we don't have to send the state a check, they just take it out. And you can see that the charges have been lowered. School choice has been lowered by $160,000, and charter has been lowered by $31,000. So we lowered those in our budget as well. So that's been reflected in the current budget we have here. The next chart, the next slide is the foundation budget. And this is the starting point for how they determine Chapter 70 funding for the district. They take our foundation enrollment, which is the first row, the top row across the top, the first highlighted yellow cell all the way to the right is 1698. That's our foundation enrollment. It's a little bit different than our district enrollment because it includes choice and charter out from that live in Ayer and Shirley. So it is a little bit different than our district enrollment. So they take all these students, they spread them across all these different classifications, special ed, English language learners, special ed out of district, and then they multiply all these rows that are the classifications for the services that we're supposed to provide for these students and how much it should cost for us to provide these services. So that total is $23,800,000. They divide that by the 1698 to get a per student foundation budget of $14,067. So that is multiplied by our 1698 on the next slide. It shows on the left the Chapter 70 calculation. Last year, we received $8.5 million in Chapter 70. So row 2, they put in our foundation budget of $23,800,000, and they subtract the required local contribution, which the state sets based on the ability of the town to pay, and real estate values, income, and they also have a target that they're looking for all the towns to get to. So they put in $15,652,000 for the required local contribution. That's for Ayer and Shirley. So when they subtract that from the foundation budget, they get $8.1 million. They say, okay, we gave you 8.5 last year, so you're a hold harmless. We're not going to give you any more, but you're not going to be getting any less aid. So we're getting the minimum aid of $30 a student, which is $50,000 that we get for an increase in Chapter 70. On the right is just a comparison from FY24 to 25 for all these same numbers. And then the visual, the graphic, shows you how a slight increase over the years for Chapter 70. They are trying to adjust for health insurance and other items like that that get significantly underfunded for years. So once we get our foundation enrollment set, you can see we have a total of 1,698 students for the district. So that's down 14 students. Ayer is up 1 student, and Shirley is down 15 students. So the FY24 required local contribution is compared to our FY25 amount. The amount for Ayer is $9.7 million. That's an increase of $648,000. So that's the number that's based on Ayer's ability to pay, and also how close the town is to the target that the Department of Ed sets. So there is a 1% addition on this. It's included in the 648, but there was a 1% increment towards the target for the town of Ayer. Shirley as well.
When you say, like a 1% increment to the target, can you kind of explain what that means? Because my understanding from required local contribution is it goes into the magic formula and it just spits out what a town should be paying. So I guess what is Ayer's target compared to what we're actually paying?
So Ayer's ability to pay is calculated based on real estate income, and they come up with a target based on that. But what they take last year's required local contribution and multiply it by our growth factor, and that's, I think it was like 4.68, and that takes in new real estate, how this town is doing basically, and they multiply that by what last year's RLC was. That becomes your contribution, but they've already calculated the target separately. Say, so if Ayer's target is 11 million, and the RLC from last year multiplied by that factor is less than that, then they're gonna add the increment to make it, get us closer to the
I'd
target.
actually be curious, and not for tonight, but to actually see what the targets are for both Ayer and Shirley versus what we're actually paying. Is
I
that
left
something
that
you could
slide
pull
off. I
together?
usually include that slide that shows all those
Okay.
calculations. And I found it was kind of hard to explain because it's so complicated, but I could do a separate
You just want to email it to me, that would
emailing
be
to
perfect.
to
Yeah,
all you
I
guys.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I had a feeling you might ask for that.
Biannual question.
Okay, I'll get that.
We've been doing this together for too long.
Okay, so the next slide, we're gonna show the apportionment of Ayer's total required local contribution is not just for the Ayer Shirley School District, it also includes Neshoba Valley, because the town of Ayer belongs to or sends students to the Ayer Shirley District and is a member of the Neshoba Valley Technical High School. So, top four rows are showing FY24 data, and the bottom rows from 5 to 9 show the data for FY25. So we see the one student up increase for Ayer. Their portion of the foundation budget is 91%. And that's how it's going to be split between Ayer Shirley and Neshoba Tech. Our percentage of the foundation budget and their percentage. So Ayer's required local contribution to the Ayer Shirley region is 9.7 million, and we're paying 926,000 for the required local contribution to Neshoba Tech. And that's the increase of 648,320 for the Ayer Shirley district, and 46,000 decrease. So Neshoba Tech is down 6 students from Ayer. So that's a decrease, so it's actually lowering the overall increase to the required local contribution by 46,000. So I included the totals page here again. The FinCom, we had different numbers for our meeting on the 23rd. They have been lowered. We tweaked transportation, charter tuition out, and we're at 4.5% increase for our general fund, which is our top the orange rows to begin with. Net school spending includes transportation and our debt. Those are added to our general fund expenditure lines to create the operating assessment and debt, which goes into the assessment calculation. We subtract the revenue, all the general fund revenue gets subtracted from the general fund expenditures and debt, and the balance is the assessment to the towns, which is calculated by portions of the regional agreement and the required local contribution, which is set by the state. So on the next page, you can see being applied into the assessments. Row 1 is the required local contribution for Ayer and Shirley. This has been updated for these numbers, 9.7 for Ayer, 5.9 for Shirley. When these numbers increase, row number 2 decreases. So the amount that is above net school spending is the piece that gets allocated by the regional agreement, which is a 5-year rolling average of the foundation enrollment. So that keeps it kind of steady, so you don't see any spikes. So it'd be 57% to Ayer, 43% to Shirley for row 2, and that's money that the towns contribute above RLC. Transportation is separate, but it's calculated the same exact way. The 5-year rolling average of foundation enrollment, 57-43 split. And that makes up our operating assessment. We compare it to FY24, it's a 7.9% increase overall, 9 to Ayer, 6.3 to Shirley. And then we add in our excluded capital debt service to a kind of a different calculation. It's based on, depending on which town it's in and what level it is. Elementary schools, Any capital debt is attributed to the town in which the building resides. And for the middle school and the high school, since they're regional and we have students from both towns, we do a blend of residential and foundation enrollment to determine the allocation. And it's basically about a 55% Ayer, 45% Shirley at this point. And so that debt is split based on those calculations for Ayer and Shirley. It's added into the operating assessment. It actually brings the overall percentage a little bit down to 7.3%, 8.4% to Ayer, and 5.8% to Shirley. We know that we have a big number in there for the ESSER 3 salaries, and it's something that we are prepared to work on and look for options of maybe phasing it in, other funding sources, E&D. We have, that's like our free cash, and it's being certified right now. So once that is certified, the school committee can approve transfers from E&D. We could transfer that into the general fund to help pay for salaries and hopefully make some leeway against that number. But right now we're putting it in there because we wanted to just to show what the cost of keeping those positions in our budget would be to the towns. But we are fully prepared to work on that number.
We know that has to come down. We wanted transparency and really for everyone to know what the cost of doing business actually is. And we had presented to everyone the entitlement grant presentation and how we were using entitlement grants and school choice for positions, and then what exactly can happen if you continue to do that over a long period of time, which we have, and many districts have. But we are fully aware that percentage in that 768 needs to come down. But those represent 12 positions that we feel are vital. So we're going to use a variety of methods, including E&D, to move some of these positions into the general fund this year, and then some more next year and some more the year after, so that it isn't at 8.4% assessment. But we thought it was important that everybody know that this is actually what it costs for us to provide what we are currently providing in Ayer Shirley.
Question. So the 12 positions, we have 4 schools. What is like the approximate breakdown of them between the schools? Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's why I brought it. See how quickly I can find it. It's an open tab, but the problem is I have about 50 tabs open. Of course, I'm offline. Okay, so that isn't working. It's roughly, it's 2 to 3 per building. So we're talking adjustment counselors, school adjustment counselors, which is really a position that provides social, emotional, and mental health supports to students. There would be 2 reading specialists that would be in the elementary schools, a social worker at the high school. So Corey, help me out if, thank you. A grants coordinator that is in that position. That position funds other positions. So we feel that is important to keep. There are some RBTs, which is a registered behavior technician. These are people that work with students who have some behavioral issues and need extra support. There's a paraprofessional in there. And 2 EL paraprofessionals and a 0.5 English language teacher. And there is also currently an LPN, as a nurse practitioner that is working at Page Hilltop.
Page Hilltop.
I think that's 12?
You got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's why I had it on a sheet, but luckily I remember.
Thank you. I'll open up to questions from Select Board or also Finance Committee at the table.
I have none at this time.
I don't have any.
Open up any questions from the public while we have everyone here. Do you have a question? Robert, please.
Mr. Chair, just through you, just a couple of questions. Not to put you on the spot, Bill, but to put you on the spot. Do you have any sense of an approximate ballpark on your E&D number? I know you're going through the certification, but I was curious if you have a sense of
We do.
That number.
We do. Last year, we ended with 1.4 million.
Okay.
We transferred 300,000 to our capital stabilization this year for the field project. That was approved by the school committee, so we're at 1.1 million.
Thank you. And question just for some further clarification on your budget, the top line under the central office. There's a 24.5% increase, or about $268,136, and the note is for contracted salary increases. Can you sort of quantify that number a little bit more in terms of, I understand there's contractual increases just like on the town side, but how many positions that is? I mean,
We have about 20 million total in salaries. So 4% is about 800,000. We built spreadsheets for the teacher's contract for each year, which included steps and lane COLA for all the teachers, and if they were able to move, I moved them on the spreadsheet. So we know exactly what all the pieces cost for our unions that have settled their contracts. So we added that all up. Then we added in the non-union and admin, and added that on top. So that is how we came to that number, that total number. Now, it is $268,000 over the prior year, but that includes 4% COLA on the teachers for the FY '25. And then all 4 ASME units have just settled their contracts. So they have contract increases of 3% plus steps if they're eligible for them.
so just to clarify more so for the public, this total number is just within this cost center right now under
Just for
central
now.
office. It's not just, what I'm getting at is it's not just the administrative
No.
positions in the central office. 'cause
No, once
Okay.
the budget is certified,
It's-
we'll move them into the appropriate cost
It's
centers.
all of your contractual
All
increases is
salaries.
that number.
That's includes the COLA for every single employee.
Okay,
You notice the cost center for early childhood and the names of
Yep.
the schools, you'll notice that the number change on each of those is 0%.
right, so you'll move.
So after it's done, then that'll move.
Can I ask why you don't, knowing, if you know, I'm guessing teachers don't shuffle massively from school to school, why you should, I'm guessing you know roughly what the increase is at each school, why you don't just put with the associated school on this?
Well, we do have a lot of movement, salary-wise and position-wise, as far as teaching goes. So we do wait until the budget's certified, and then over the summer, we're working on it. And then the final 2 weeks before school opens, we probably have the best idea where everybody is, and we can move the money more accurately then.
On January 15th, teachers need to inform us if they are expecting to make a lane change based on graduate credits. So we have a rough idea what that is, but that is often very different than the actual completion of graduate courses. So this number is more of, and Bill, please correct me if I'm wrong, worst case scenario with the increases than what the actual increase might be. And then it doesn't take into account to teachers moving from building to building or leaving the district and hiring teachers.
We have a spreadsheet of everybody that's put in for a lane change, and then we put a dollar amount on that, and we include that in our number that is, you see in that central office cost center.
For instance, on why that sometimes is a discrepancy, we may have a teacher who has a master's degree and writes us a letter saying they expect to have 60 graduate credits by the end of the by June 1st. Is June, what's the date where they have to show us the
January
transcript?
15th,
No,
and then
for the
September
transcripts.
30th.
By September 30th, they need to provide the transcript that is complete. We know getting 60 graduate credits in a year is rather difficult, but we still sometimes get those letters. So we budget for it because they're telling us they're going to have those done, or they already have them and haven't submitted the transcript in the past. But sometimes it will come in and they might have 5, 10, 15 graduate credits done, which would affect how much that raise actually is.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just one last question and just one comment. On the ESRA line, the 708,000, is that, Dr. Renda, is that, as it stands, sort of a one-time, or is that looking at this phased-in approach? You've spoken a few times.
768?
Yeah.
So that's what we would, that is the dollar amount that we would need for the 12 positions in ESSER that we feel is crucial, are crucial to keep.
Okay.
Now that, so that is the salary for those positions. We are well aware, and that's what we are working on, is getting that number down.
Okay.
So we feel it is important to get, to change our process a bit and not carry positions in entitlement grants year after year after year, and to limit the positions that we're carrying in school choice, though it is acceptable to do, but it should be a transition. So with the entitlement grants, if we're trying a new position, an innovative position, a position that might be in another district that is working, and we want to know if that's going to work in Ayer Shirley, it's absolutely appropriate to carry that in an entitlement grant. If after that second year we know we need this, we should be trying to move that position into the general fund. So that way, if entitlement grants get hit, that is the position that we know we need, and it's in the general fund. It is not something that would be dependent on receiving those entitlement grants. What has happened is, because we have held those in entitlement grants for year after year after year and school choice, that those number of positions is actually much larger than we would want it to be, which also does represent those 12 from ESSER in a way. So the plan is to move some into the general fund and then create a transition so that we can keep those positions either through E&D or some competitive grants or some tuition in, some building rentals. And we do actually have some I believe it's one student right now who tuitions in from another district. It's not school choice, it's a tuition, so it's a much higher number. That can be used for a salary, which would bring this number down. We rent building space to CAPS Collaborative at Page Hilltop, so that amount of money could actually be applied to that. That would bring that 768 down. And we continue to receive competitive grants that hopefully will bring that down even further, including, and that doesn't include the E&D that we do plan on using to help step this in a more doable fashion.
And sort of just my final question, and I thank the chair, and sort of point, and we've discussed this, the goal is the sustainability, right, of all three entities, the district, the town of Shirley, and the town of Ayer. And I appreciate what you said this evening, that you're open to, further revising the assessment within reason, because...
Yeah, I mean, more than open, I mean, we are
Yeah.
planning on it. We wanted to be very transparent of, this is what it costs to do this.
Right. And as you can appreciate, at least from our vantage point, this type of increase obviously is not sustainable. And from my vantage point, not a criticism, but is pushing the ceiling at the 1.1 million. So I think some further, revision is good to hear, and it's not easy. Do you have any sense of a potential target? What I'm getting at is, based on your timeline, you're looking at February 14th and then a March 4th or March 5th, vote. Time is of the essence. Do you have a target for that number yet on the 768? I know you're waiting for the ED certification, but I was just curious if you have a sense of a further reduction.
Well, I can tell you, it really partly would depend on the E&D. I know, and we are waiting for some competitive grants, which makes that number hard to give you.
Yeah.
Because if depending on the number of grants that we get, would really depend on how much we can bring that down. But, if, I can tell you that with the revenue streams coming in, and if we continue to receive payment for the shelter, we could say we could at least bring that down 300, if not more.
300,000?
Yeah, if not more. I'm being conservative.
Yeah.
Because we have received the payment from the state, so that's a great sign. If we continue to receive payments, that's a much better sign. So that will be helpful in doing this, but we feel we can at least bring that down, that amount.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. Barbara?
I had one question.
Yes, please.
Mr. Chair. You mentioned the insurance being underfunded, or did I hear you wrong? When you mentioned the insurance for the year, for the increase? For Medicaid?
Oh, the Medicaid reimbursements we receive for any medical services that are provided to a student with an IEP. We get reimbursement from the Medicare system. They had expanded the system. They said they were expanding it, but they actually tightened up a lot of the pieces of it. The random movement and all that stuff, all those time studies you have to do. So initially we saw a decrease in our Medicaid. Most recently it's starting to get back up. We are starting to see some expansion of it, but initially we saw a decrease. So we're just going to be conservative, and we didn't reach our mark in FY23, so we're going to stay where we are for now.
For now, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Correct.
Hi, Kurt Freskowski. Thank you, Dr. Renda. And actually, the question I had, you actually answered it in the last few comments that you made, which was, I was going to ask, are you continuing to focus on new grants? And over your comments over the last few minutes, you have said, we're looking for this, we're looking for that. So I think that is something to really keep a focus on. And going hand in hand with that, this is probably the harder of the two, is keeping on the state to see what funds we can continue to get from them.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. We did have a meeting today with some local office holders. We met with Senator Cronin's office, Senator Eldridge was there, and Representative Zena was there. And we have been in touch with Lori Trahan's office as well, to kind of plead our case and let them know the unique circumstances that are happening right now that are affecting small regional districts. As you know, this is not just an Ayer Shirley problem. Our neighbors are in the same boat, some looking for overrides of millions of dollars. There was also a meeting in Groton, I believe it's on the 12th, where it's going to be an open forum with some of those local reps will be there. We plan to attend and reiterate what we talked to them about today. Not to add to the budget woes of any of our neighbors. I won't mention them by name, but we could be in worse shape, and where we believe that we can get this into a manageable number so that we can transition this over the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah. Thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions? All right, excellent. Well, thank you for coming. We look forward to the revised budget.
Thank you.
A little bit later on. So I appreciate it. Kurt, do you want to close the Finance Committee meeting?
Oh, yes. So I'd like to, do a move in second?
I need to get someone to make a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Andrew via Zoom? Aye. Aye, very good. Finance Committee is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Thanks for
For
coming.
being here.
Up next, we have Affordable Housing Zoning Bylaw Working Group update with Janet Provodakis. Good evening.
Come on down. Hey, guys.
Hello.
I apologize if I just interject and start asking questions.
Thank you very much for letting me speak. I'm wearing one of the multiple hats right now. Go ahead.
Can we have the room, please? Thank you.
I wanted people to be able to hear you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I won't get as loud as I did before. It's like, oh, all right. Again, thank you very much for letting me come. I wanted to give you guys an update, and like I say, I'm wearing one of the multiple hats. I'm the chair of the Affordable Housing Committee. And about a little over a year ago, I came here and I came to all the other boards and committees saying that the Housing Committee wanted to find ways to go ahead and find different opportunities for housing, especially affordable housing, but creative ideas of coming up with more inventory. So again, I went to all the different boards and such to say, okay, we want to try to create the working group. And that's about what got created, is a working group that has 4 volunteers and 3 town hall employees. We've got Ken Diskin. We've also got Nathan King, Dave Seaborg. So we've got a variety of hats, like I say, plus myself. And then for the town, we've got Danny Ruiz, Charlie Schultz with Mike, Mike Wallace, and Alicia Hersey. So with that, we've got a good group. Like I say, I asked all the other boards and such for individuals to partake. And all it is a working group to go ahead and discuss ways to create more affordable housing and such, and what can we do. And what we ended up doing is we're looking for, it turned out to be that we're looking for a better way to get an inventory. Like, I don't know if you remember, Alicia had we had the housing forum, and some of the presentation that she made is Ayer is really lucky that we have a diverse housing component. It's not all single-family housing. We've got apartments. We've got, 2-family duplexes, multifamily, and we've got apartments that have 6 or more, units. With that, over the past couple of years, we've focused in on, and I mean, it's the developers that come in, but it's been a focus of single-family housing. And if there's a way that we can look at other opportunities to create that inventory of a diverse type of housing, this is what the working group has done. And what we're going to do is, and I smile when I say it, we're giving the planning board work to do. Because what we're going to do, and I've got a meeting set up as well with the planning board on the 13th to talk about not only the section about inclusionary housing in the zoning bylaw, where there's a way to, possibly start looking at the Massachusetts guidelines for affordable housing and use that as a component, plus also to looking at the table of use regulations to see, again, when you've got to remember when items are, when you have the chart there that has the permitted, that it's either ZBA permitted by a special permit or planning board special permit, it's all a permitting process. So it gets reviewed by all the members of the town, and for the special permit, there's additional steps that have to take. Looking at those types of ways so that that process can occur, maybe keep it all consistent, like say for what we have here for form-based code, making sure that stays consistent. Also to maybe getting more feedback on calling items as dwelling units instead of apartments. Things that are already developed within the bylaws, the zoning bylaws. So again, I'm giving planning board work to do. Or I'd say not me, but this working group. And it was good because what we've realized is Ayer's really lucky. And I mean, I think we all know that, that's why we live here. But we have a full-time town planner. I know, I was gonna say not planning, town planner, and we've got a planning board that's got real estate backgrounds. They've got building and contractor backgrounds and such. So when we got to, like I say, when we got together as a group, it's almost like when you meet after a meeting, you know, when you get together, you know, you talk in the hallway and such. It was that type of thing of what can some of the ideas be. So we've got that, and what we want to, again, just try to find ways. And I've got those items that are all listed. I'm not going to go into the chart and everything. That's all for the planning board. But I wanted to give this group an update to let you know that the working group, I think, came out really good with some ideas for the planning board, and we'd like to go ahead and still continue it. So that's really one other thing I was going to say, is if that's an opportunity, the working group would like to continue as we progress to see if there's other things that we might be able to do with the zoning bylaw. And again, this is all because of the master plan. The master plan said, let's try to keep diversity within the town. And the best way to do it is to try to come up with an inventory that gives different opportunities for different income levels. Maybe, you know, focus in certain section for, I mean, people talk about elderly housing. People talk about, you know, individuals who work here in the town, can't afford to live in the town. So how can we go ahead and do that? And this is what the group has been talking about. So we've got certain things we want to set up for this time around, but we want to continue. So as long as we got your okay, then we'd like to do that. And if there was any type of questions that you had, I wanted to give it, I know you got a lot on your plate, but I wanted to give you guys an update.
No, thank you very much. Any questions, comments from the board?
No.
No?
So, I had a thought, it just left. So, all right, so one of the things, so you mentioned the master plan, which was approved in 17, right? So that's gonna be coming up soon, so.
No, amazing.
I know, right? So, maybe this working group too will end up feeding into the new master plan.
I hope so.
So, but I'm just curious, is to, you know, you mentioned like, you know, if you word everything as a dwelling instead of an apartment, what does that matter?
It's the definitions. You know, the zoning bylaws have the definition of a dwelling unit. Okay, so this way here, it just, again, when a developer comes in, they're looking for, okay, what do you mean by this? And then same thing with, if we're going with some of the Massachusetts guidelines, it talks about dwelling units, how big the bedrooms need to be, how big this and such. So with that, it keeps it all consistent.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay, I was just wondering. So this would be basically if, you know, we ended up getting the zoning bylaws updated, then, you know, a developer coming in, hopefully they're gonna see that, you know, maybe we're more friendly to a dwelling unit that can house 10 families or something. Versus, you know,
Or like
this constant, you know, single family housing, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and also too, I mean, again, start looking at, you know, the condominiums, start looking at townhouses, you know, to be able to, you know, do more of the duplexes with maybe the single doorway going in. You know, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but when brought up in Springfield area, you know, you had the 2-family, 3-family. It was only one door to get in, but you had the stairwell that was right in the front.
Yeah.
You know, of that. And we have these in town. I mean, I've got the little chart where, you know, you go ahead and when Alicia showed this, I mean, we've got, and again, this is all online, you know, from the forum and her community.
Exactly.
CDBG. Program, the public hearing that they had. So, you know, when you see all the little multicolors down here, we have a variety of housing. But all of a sudden, we started shifting. So with that, it's like, if we're going to keep this type of, you know, inventory, it would be nice to be able to have that. And that's why we're looking at the different ways of doing it, especially with the inclusionary housing.
Excellent.
All right, so I'm going to be, like I say, updating all the other boards too as well. But yeah, it's a good group. Like I say, we got, you know, again, we all live here, so we know we got a good team here. So, all right?
Sounds good.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions? No? Oh, okay.
No questions? Thank you very
All
much.
right, you're
Janet.
welcome. Thank you as well for the
Good
opportunity.
evening.
Janet.
Up next is Dan Manchelwick, Director, Department of Public Works. Evening, Dan.
Mr. Chair, everybody. Hello. Okay, some DPW items for the select board tonight. First one, execution of the contract for the Spectacle Pond Water Treatment Plant Filter Media Project. So this is the green sand filter media project that the board awarded at its last meeting. Winston Builders did provide the required insurance bond and also a copy of the contract. I passed to Robert, but it's for signature by the chair. So it is for the same amount that was awarded, the $408,889, and we're ready to get that going as soon as we can. So,
All right.
any
Excellent.
questions, let me know.
Any questions from the board?
No?
I don't have any.
I'll make a motion that the select board execute the contract for the Spectacle Pond Water Treatment Plant Filter Media Replacement Project in the amount of $408,889 for signature by the chair.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And
Aye.
the chair says aye. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks. Okay, item 2, Curly Circle Street Acceptance. So, as the board would recall, the Curly Circle was voted favorably at fall 2023 town meeting for street acceptance. And so what that vote was, it was to authorize the select board to acquire Curly Circle, acquire the street. So the final step for the street acceptance is for the board to acquire it, and I worked with town council as well as the developers council to prepare what's called an easement deed for the acceptance. So that's provided in the packet, and it's been executed by Deca Corp. We have an executed copy by Deca Corp, the developer. So this would be the final step for the town to accept the street, and we would get that recorded within the 120-day limit from fall town meeting. So.
Where's Curly Circle again?
Just past Pepsi off of Littleton Road, almost at Shaker Road if you're heading out of town.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Oh, all those
And
new
you're heading
houses and
out
everything.
on the left?
It's like right across from Shaker Road. Yeah, it's on the left as you're heading out of town.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I have no questions.
Any questions myself?
I'll make a motion that the board accept the easement deed and acquire the street and easement of Curly Circle.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And chair says aye. It's accepted.
All right, great. That's all I have for DPW, but I'll hang around for the next one. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Dan, for that.
Thanks.
Next item on the agenda is the proposal for acquisition of 71 Sandy Pond Road. Mr. Pombriand?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dan and I have a brief presentation regarding this and just a brief sort of initial public overview presentation on this opportunity for the town. Before we go through the slides, just a little background. As many are probably familiar with, 71 Sandy Pond Road is located diagonally across from the town beach, and historically, some time ago, there used to be a candy sort of shop there, a long time ago, and then it had been a residential property for many years. And in my tenure here during that time, and we'll look at some photos at various times, we had the property in a status of property enforcement. An opportunity was presented to the town right around the holidays. The property was ultimately acquired by a private developer through an auction, and approached the town, and we'll talk about this in a minute, as he plans to develop the site. There were initial discussions about an opportunity for the town to potentially acquire this property, specifically for its key location that we'll get into right from the town beach, the fact that land is of a premium in town for municipal purposes, and that it is an opportunity that should be put forth to the town to decide. So the select board had met in a series of executive sessions. that ultimately culminated into the purchase and sale for this property at the amount of $700,000, which we'll get into in a minute. The contingencies, just so everybody is aware, I know the board is aware, that though there's a purchase and sale agreement, this must be approved by the voters at town meeting. So ultimately, I believe the feeling is that this opportunity should be put forth to the voters, and we'll show momentarily what that decision could mean. So I'll go to so this is, so that's just an aerial shot earlier. There's sort of what the site currently looks like. Actually, a lot of those vehicles have been removed. I want to just clarify something. In the packet, we cited it as a 2.3 acre property. It's actually 2.86. The 2.3 is from the A&R that was pointed out and appreciated by a member of the planning board doing his due diligence, which is appreciated. So it's actually a 2.86 site. It's relatively, it is flat. A condition of the purchase and sale would be that the private owner, before it were to be sold to the town, the house all the structures will be removed, everything will be removed, it'll be completely flat. We're working some other, the basement will be filled. Believe it or not, this property is on a septic. That will be, filled with the appropriate clean fill and so forth, and it would be completely leveled as one of the contingencies. Next. So another, so that's sort of an aerial view of the existing house. Again, fortunately, a lot of that material has been already removed, the vehicles and so forth. And you can see the proximity of the site. So to clarify, at the time that we were developing this, the private property developer was proposing to build two-unit duplexes on the site. And this is just an aerial view of that. Since then, when he went to the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Zoning Board of Appeals has denied that special permit. That is, subject potentially to appeal by the private property owner. But the analysis that was put in the packet that the building commissioner did on the cost analysis assumed this at the time. Since then, as the board knows, the building commissioner has done a revised analysis assuming a single family construct. But up until very recently, that was the plan. The developer's plan is, if the town decides, if town meeting decides not to move forward with the acquisition, his intention is to develop the site. This was his preferred approach. If not, it'd be a single family, I'm assuming, that's his, but his plan is to develop the site. Next. And I want to thank the DPW, specifically Dan and the town engineer, Matt Hernan, and the other town engineer, Delaney York, that put together. These are just some conceptual renderings, and I want to stress, and that's why I bolded it in my memo. I think it's important that everybody know that there is no definitive plan for this property on the town side. There is no definitive plan, except it is an opportunity for the town to acquire 2.86 acres right diagonally across from the beach, and an opportunity to further develop the site in terms of open space and recreation assets. I also want to make it just crystal clear that the intent from the beginning was never to construct the senior center at this location, because, as many know, through the due diligence, the site is not conducive to that project in terms of the parking, the size, and wetlands. So, as I mentioned here, if the town, and we'll talk about next steps, if town meeting were to authorize this, then the next step would be a dedicated public process through the appropriate, to be developed for the town to decide and have input on the future. So the next three renderings are just conceptual, and that's all they are. There's no preconceived plans. This one, for example, shows, the first one shows some parking with, can we just go back one? That shows some parking, sort of a picnic area, park, changing area, so forth. And then the next one, this shows a concept of some limited parking with the idea of a pavilion, some open space, planting, playground, picnic area. And as I put in, the sky is sort of the limit of possibilities there. And I think there's one more, or was that the third one? And then there's another, it could be all open space. It could be a park. It could be, again, all of that to be determined, but without acquiring it, that's the first step. Next, is that all?
Yeah.
Okay, so the other things that made it attractive, and the DPW director has spoke to this with the board, is this is going to be part of the Safer Streets and the Sandy Pond, complete street
Correct.
project. And maybe you could speak to, if the town was to acquire that, some further improvements that could be made.
Yeah, so just for everybody listening, so the town acquired a $500,000 complete streets grant to improve Sandy Pond Beach intersection area all the way to Patriot Way with bicycle lanes and sidewalk. And so the timing of that construction and the timing of this actually coincides nicely, because now if the town acquires this, it's got this blank canvas at 71 Sandy Pond Road, which it can do what it wants, through any planning to be right next to the beach area. So that project within this intersection, that area, the town designing the road can design it in a way to sort of work, coincide with the 71 Sandy Pond Road, whatever happens there. At the same time, there's also a safety zone in this area, it's called, and it's what's called the 20-mile-per-hour speed limit. And so the town, as part of the Complete Streets project, will be putting signage, narrowing the roadways. There'll be more dedicated on-street parking. So it'll be a much different area, much improved for the town. There'll be safer crosswalks with the RRFBs, they're called, the flashing beacons in that area where it's appropriate. So it really comes together at the right time with the knowledge that the town potentially could have a great opportunity here and also be upgrading the Complete Streets roadway. So as part of that, that's currently designed right now, we're almost out to bid with it. The design also does kind of reconfigure the intersection a little bit. I don't have an image of it, but it sort of straightens out the big sweeping curve, if you can see on Snake Hill Road as you head, if you're coming, where Carly has her pointer now. So it kind of makes that more of a 90-degree angle. So it actually, gives a little bit tighter of a space, shorter of a crosswalk for people to get to the beach, but also gives a little more space for the actual beach area to be able to do anything. And kind of at the same time, the Sandy Pond, the beach, the Parks Department has recently done a study of the beach house, which needs to be improved. So all this coming together at once, can be put together in a plan for the whole area to make it all work nicely and be a much good improvement for the town.
Yeah, I guess one thing I'll add that we've talked about in executive session in regards to the beach house and also reconfiguring in the intersection is by adding parking across the street, we could take away the parking spots that are right along Snake Hill Road, which, in the current configuration, you have cars coming around the bend at like 30 miles an hour as you're trying to back out. And that could actually be utilized to expand the beach area itself in coordination with redoing the beach house.
And Mr. Chair, just to add, so in terms of the funding plan, so I mean the price is $700,000, and there is no question that's a considerable sum. However, it's an opportunity, and that's the cost of it. The sort of proposal would be that we approach the CPC for $350,000 in the open space and recreation categories for the acquisition, with the balance of the $350,000 up to the board, whether that comes from UDAG funding subject to replenishment, ARPA, a combination, so that's sort of the approach on the funding. It's important to note that there has been no exchange of any funding, and there wouldn't be unless there was a town meeting approval. One other point is if town was to approve it at town meeting, within 60 days would be the conveyance of the property. There could also be an opportunity for some interim parking, which the DPW director has looked into just as interim, even if it doesn't end up being some parking at all, but in an interim until we figure out, if the town were to own it, then we are in a position to develop the appropriate plan with the public process, pursue the funding and so forth. But the first step is the opportunity, and I think the general feeling was that it is an important opportunity for the town to consider. And just to conclude, again, if town meeting approves the acquisition, then we would move forward with acquiring the property, and there are no immediate plans for the property except potentially some interim parking for the beach season until we develop everything. There are no preconceived plans, so those are just general concepts. There's no preconceived plans. It was not intended because it doesn't fit on the senior center project. If the town meeting decides, no, we don't want to move forward with it, the private developer owner understands that, and he'll proceed with developing the property, which would be either maybe the duplex proposal, but given recent developments, probably some type of residential development. So with that, that sort of concludes our initial presentation.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board?
Just a comment. So I just think it's important that everybody remember that, while the property owner was looking at, ideas about developing, the property owner was also talking to the town. So, everything has been happening side by side. So the property owner kind of wins either way, so I think that's important to remember. And again, just to kind of reiterate what Robert has said, I know that, the conceptual drawings do show some parking, but I don't want everyone focused on parking. Okay? I think that some think that, we're just buying it for a parking lot. No, if required, first beach season, obviously, but it's not for a parking lot. It's, let's think out of the box a little bit better than that. So, and I really hope town meeting approves this.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Any questions from the public? I'll open it up to people here on Zoom. Pauline?
So many buttons to click to get to talk to you guys. I want to immediately second what Janice just said. I hope this is approved by town meeting. I have had a number of conversations with people. I totally supported North Country's initial proposal until I had a chance to talk with someone over the weekend. Not the same person as earlier, Janice.
I was wondering.
No, definitely not the same person. I was kind of surprised they both reached out to me. But I think this is an awesome solution for that property. I lived on Sandy Pond Road when my daughter was going to kindergarten, and we took our lives in our hands crossing that street to get on the school bus every morning. So that, I think the improvements that will be done will be a huge step in that direction. But there's not a lot of open space available for the town to purchase. So I wholly, wholly, wholly support this. I do have a couple of other points I want to make. And one, I have to get my little sheet of paper and flashlight out because I'm sitting in the dark in my house. I want you all to know, if you don't already, there's a string of social media posts about how this is some kind of fraud because the developer bought it and now all of a sudden wants to sell it to the town for a profit. So be aware of that, is all I'm saying. With respect to the executive session, now that that has been concluded, when will those minutes be available, Robert?
So, Paula, through the chair, so
Please.
Pauline, I'm going to be asking the board to approve and release those executive session minutes at their February 20th meeting.
Awesome, thank you so much. And one last thing, regarding funding, the Community Preservation Committee is about to pull back over $200,000 that was appropriated for various other projects that did not begin. And we'll just start with one of those, is the Central Fire Station. It also, if you all remember, allocated $750,000 for Kitty Junction Playground. I would like to see, and I hope Janet is still in the audience, I would really like to see all of this funded from community preservation so there was absolutely no impact on the tax bill. ARPA or the other sources you've recommended, there's 2.6 million, and if we get another $200,000, it's 2.8 million. And I think that would be an awesome way to pay for something that will benefit the entire community.
Robert,
so, Mr.
please.
Chair, to Pauline's point on that, Janet is still here taking notes. I'm going to go to the CPC's meeting tomorrow, February 7th, with a pre-application for this project, and I will be talking with Janet at length about the CPC funding. Again, when I mentioned the funding split, that was just an initial, the 350 on the CPC and 350 on the town side, but appreciate the comment, and we'll have more discussion tomorrow on that.
Great, thank you so much, I'll see you there.
All right, thank you, Pauline. Kurt, yes.
Hi, Kurt Freskowski, 39 Groton Harbor Road. The one thing that had occurred to me was when I was looking at this and having driven by the property in my short time in the town, was the amount of construction equipment and that was always in the parking lot. So one, that's nice, that is, eyesore is gone, to be blunt. But realistically, the other thing that occurred to me, and as we were sitting here, I was looking through the purchase and sales agreements, and this has been addressed, the question of possible hazardous waste or underground tanks. In other words, we wouldn't want the town to get involved with that, and I see that this is it's addressed in the purchase and sales agreements that the seller is responsible for making sure of it. And I would just throw out that we should double check that, again, thinking of just all that construction equipment that has been laying on that property. I wouldn't want somehow some agency to come in and say, oh, there's oil that's been leaking somewhere in the back. This is all something the seller needs to make sure that that's taken care of.
Well, that would be covered under the 21E, right? The environmental study.
Yes.
And years ago, that was a candy store over there. So, yeah. So, which, just kind of throwing it out there, I mean, maybe we could have a little building where, like, you know, there could be somebody like selling.
It's not on the conceptual drawing, sorry.
Well, let's put it on the conceptual drawing.
Janice's Candy Shop.
Janice's Candy Shop.
Looking for something to do in retirement?
And we'll be selling a lot of Smarties. I like the Smartie candy, so yeah. So.
And Mr. Chair, just to Kurt's point, which is well taken, as we always do, our environmental due diligence will be done in preparation for
Excellent.
if there's approval.
Janet?
Just to reiterate, the only way you're gonna get CPC funds is if it passes phase 1, and if it has to go to a phase 2, it has to go ahead and
Yeah.
pass that as well.
Yeah.
So CPC covers that.
Okay, excellent, thank you, Janet.
I'm just gonna throw out there, I'd like as much CPC funding as possible. So just gonna throw that out there.
Now just remember the beach house coming, also the beach area to be redone, so.
Yeah.
That's on capital.
Yeah, we got it. We got it covered.
All right.
It's all there, yeah. And we're gonna sell little bricks everybody's gonna have a little ownership, you know? So
All right.
I'm all for the bricks or something, park
right.
benches.
Are there questions or comments? Ken?
Ken Diskin, 180 Washington Street. So, just curious, if Park and Rec is in on this discussion of how do they feel about this whole situation? Don't they manage the beach at this time?
Yeah, Robert, you want to speak to
So,
that?
Mr. Chair,
please?
and so just to repeat the question in case, is Parks and, Rec, where are they on this? So, the Parks Director and the Chair of the Parks Commission are aware of it. They are enthusiastic about it. They have a meeting coming up, Ken, at their Parks Commission meeting. They're going to be discussing further. But I anticipate that they would be, supportive and of course would be a key piece of the process if we acquire it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ken. Pauline, is that another question?
Yes, sorry, will the park commission be on Zoom, Robert?
Let me check, Pauline, and I'll let you know. I'll
Thank you.
check. Yep.
All right, I think that's all the questions, comments we have. So thank you, Robert. Thank you, Dan, for sticking around. Thank you, Carly, for working the presentation.
Excellent.
Thanks, Dan.
Next item we have is the town manager's report. And I will turn it over to you, Mr. Pompriant.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. Under the administrative update, just a couple of quick items. On February 8th, this Thursday, at 5 p.m., there's the next senior center site selection meeting. The committee continues to work on its due diligence to find a suitable town-owned site for that. They also recently authorized the issuance of an RFP for architectural services, which they'll be discussing the responses and next steps at that meeting. The Rate Review Committee met this afternoon and has voted to recommend that the public hearing for the FY25 water and sewer rates be set for March 19th, which will be part of the Select Board meeting. Last Friday, as many know, the Neshoba Valley Technical High School released their FY25 budget and assessment at their budget breakfast, which Selectman Livingston attended, Mr. Freskowski and Mr. Seckman from the FinCom, Barbara, the finance manager, and I. That presentation is on the budget webpage. The assessment is actually down by $62,000 from last year, but is a piece of our budget process. Brief personnel update, some changes underway. The assessing administrator is going to be leaving us for another position at the end of in March. So we will be advertising for that position. The long-term parks director, Jeff Thomas, has announced his retirement on April 4th. And I will be meeting with the Parks Commission that is aware about this, about next steps as far as advertising for this important position and working with a transition plan on that. And we really want to congratulate Jeff and wish him the best. And I'm sure we'll be doing something more on that later. And there is going to be a vacancy. Our assistant town accountant is going to be leaving for another position, so we'll be advertising on that front. So some upcoming personnel changes there. Lastly, my plan is for February 20th to have what we'll call draft 2 of the budget. We're actively working on it since draft 1. We'd present that briefly to the select board and transmit to the FinCom. And on February 20th, I will have a initial overview and update on what the annual town meeting warrant is starting to look like as we move forward with that. So that's just in my administrative update, and the warrants that were approved are in the packet since then. If there aren't any questions, I'll jump right into the action items. Again, the budget process, just briefly, pieces are beginning to come together. We've got the Neshoba assessment tonight on the Ayer Shirley Regional School District initial on the budget, and it's encouraging to hear that some further efforts are going to be made on that. Draft 2 on February 20th. If you check out the website, the Finance Committee has a series of meetings coming up. They met with the Fire Department last week. They're going to be meeting, I know, with police, Neshoba Valley Technical High School, DPW, the stormwater effort, and so forth. So we move forward on the budget process. The next item, again, back to that March meeting schedule from the last meeting. As the board is aware, March 5th is the Massachusetts presidential primary, or Super Tuesday, and the board respectfully, per the Secretary of State's office, there should be no public meetings in a polling place, and there'll be voting happening at that time. So the board should consider what you want to do about the March 5th meeting. And as I mentioned, the March 19th meeting is not an issue, and that would work well for the public hearing on the water and sewer. So I don't know if the board has any further thoughts on the plan for March.
Sorry, been a rough day. Is there any issues if we just push a week, but then we would have back-to-back meetings, or would you recommend or prefer we meet during that first week of March? I guess that's the question.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
While they're kind of looking at the date, I am absolutely unavailable the first 2 weeks of March.
The first 2 weeks.
Okay.
But I will be at the March 19th.
So Mr. Chair, the March 12th, the planning board, they already have public hearings scheduled, so that's a week later.
What about the next day, the Wednesday, the 6th?
Yeah, I can do the 6th.
Is that available?
Yeah, the CPC meets what time? 7?
7.
So if we could maybe do a 5:30?
They could do that.
I can make that work. Yeah, just remind me.
Okay. So March 6th, 5:30. Okay. Thank you. The next item 4, there's been a Keno monitor request for the vineyard located at 63 Park Street. And the request was in your packet. It has been vetted by all of the town departments, and there are no issues. So we'd be looking for board approval.
They're not asking for a monitor to be outside, correct?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Yeah, no issues.
Yeah, okay, no issues. Okay.
I'll make a motion that the board approve the Keno monitor request for the vineyard at 63 Park Street in Ayer.
Seconded?
All those in favor?
Aye.
And chair says aye. It's approved.
The next item, 5, is the 2024 seasonal population estimate required by the Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission. The board each year is required to take a vote to certify the form of our seasonal population, which in this case is a 0% increase. This is more applicable to sort of oceanside and resort communities, but is still required by state law. So we'd be looking for a vote to approve the 2024 seasonal population estimate at 0%.
I mean, 0% sounds about right.
Yes.
Did our population go down? I feel like we lost some people. That number looks low. Okay.
I have no questions.
I have no questions.
All right, can I get a motion to certify, please?
I'll make a motion that the board approve the 2024 seasonal population estimate for the Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission as presented.
Seconded.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
And the chair says aye.
And then, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the last item, and this remains a fluid topic, it's changed even since Friday, but I put in the packet update on the status of the Neshoba Valley Medical Center. As everybody is aware, recently there have been a lot of news reports about the financial status of Steward Medical, which is the parent corporate organization of which the Neshoba Valley Medical Center is part of. And frustratingly, up until very recently, there was very little from Steward corporate in Boston, so there have been a lot of stories about hospitals being closed and what does that mean for the future of the Neshoba Valley Medical Center. Our office had received several calls from concerned residents, understandably, on that. We have notified the state delegation is aware of the situation. In fact, Senator Eldridge, we're waiting for an update from him because he's waiting to hear from the governor's office, but he is aware and has been in communication with the governor's office. Dr. Sal Perla, who's the president here at Neshoba Valley Medical Center, has maintained both to the staff and to us that there are no immediate plans to close or sell the hospital. And I just want to stress that there's been nothing to indicate that. And as we saw recently over the weekend now, it looks like perhaps the financial situation for Stewart for the time being has been restructured some. However, it's raised a lot of concern and anxiety because it is a critical healthcare facility that fills a void. If you think about it, you got to go to the west to Fitchburg, Leominster, or Gardner, or Emerson in Metro East, or Worcester to the south. But in this Neshoba Valley, this hospital is critical to the health needs and health access to many who rely on it. Plus, it has the emergency room, the Jerry Psych facility, and it has the ability to take life flight helicopter as well. Additionally, most importantly, is the public health and public health access. The second piece, as the board knows, it's the second largest employer in the town of Ayer and plays a key role in the overall fabric of Ayer in the region. We also want to just point out that in the event, anytime in Massachusetts, a healthcare facility is to either be sold, closed, partially closed, change of ownership, it triggers a state process that requires statutory notifications, statutory timelines. There would be public hearing required and so forth. To date, we have no information indicating that the Department of Public Health has initiated any of those processes with respect to the Neshoba Valley Medical Center. So I would say that as of right now, the hospital, of course, remains open. There are no plans to the contrary that we're aware of. There are no plans of a sale that we're aware of. However, in light of the situation, we are aware and are monitoring closely. And lastly, as I propose to the board for your consideration, I believe that a formal letter from the select board to the president of Stewart in Boston, CC'd to the governor's office and all the appropriate people. I think a formal letter from the board just stressing the importance of this hospital to Ayer in the Neshoba region on multiple levels would be in order, for the record, and we'll continue to monitor the situation. That's sort of the update.
Thank you, Robert. I'd be open to sending a letter of support. Ask if you guys have any opinions on that?
No.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
This is kind of a scary situation because, not only, if something happened to this facility, this hospital, which we've been very lucky, but we do not have an infrastructure to even get people to another facility. And that gets kind of forgotten sometimes as to, how we don't have the public transportation that somebody could get to necessarily get to their appointment and everything. So I think it's important that even in our letter too, that we kind of point these out because, we really need Stewart, everyone at Stewart to realize you need to look in the mirror at yourself, ask yourself, what if this was going to affect my family? And then see what happens. Because this whole, the privatization and everything isn't necessarily working because it tends to be on a capitalist system. Nothing's bad with that. But in some cases, it backfires. And so this is very concerning. And just to add on, Representative Trahan is also
Yep.
Yep.
on her radar too. So.
Okay. Great. Excellent, thank you. So you need a vote to authorize
Yep.
writing the letter? Okay.
I'll make a motion that the select board authorize a letter to be sent to Stewart Medical.
Second?
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
And chair says aye.
Mr. Chair, thank you, members of the board. That concludes my report, unless you have any other questions.
I don't have any other questions. Any other questions from the
Nope.
board? No? All right, excellent. Thank you very much, Robert. Next item on the agenda is new business select board questions. There's nothing on the agenda, but I'll open up to members if there's anything they want to bring up. No? Okay. And then moving on, approval of meeting minutes of January 16th, 2024.
I had no issues.
I had no issues either.
I didn't.
I'll make a motion that the meeting minutes from January 16th, 2024 be approved as submitted.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
And chair says aye. And that magic time again.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. Thank you very much for your time tonight, everyone.